So I'm just going to comment on this. These two characters. I think they're both retired now, although one of them might still be working. He's an emeritus professor. I think he's at Cardigan or somewhere like that. He was at Cambridge, but he was only assistant at Cambridge. So we've got this Professor Patrick Sims Williams character, who is meant to be an expert on the Celts, even though he's sort of denouncing the word Celts, even though that's what the subject's called that you study. And with this John Collis guy, he's retired now. He's done a lot of lectures on the Celts. They are both these Celto-sceptics, and have introduced this term, Celto-scepticism, not Celto-scepticism, Celto-scepticism. Now, I just want to note one thing at this stage, actually, before I carry on. Hold on a second. The video, the link there that you see, you can contact this professor at Celtic Aber, which is quite interesting to say that he has at Celtic Aber as his Twitter account, but yet he's saying that there's no such thing as Celts. And the John Collis lecture is that Earl at the bottom, the YouTube Earl at the bottom. It's about an hour long, and I listened to it last night, and to be honest, I wasn't very impressed with it at all. I thought it was, some people might think that my talks are a lot of bumbling and babbling and nonsense, which that's up to you. I don't think they are. I think it's, valid material. But, if I can tell you what, I think the John Collis lectures pretty much is very flimsy. A lot of it's not founded on any knowledge or understanding, at least. You see, these guys, they are awarded with the highest, they've got the highest academic, award you can get. They're training and teaching students to go out into the world and know about the Celts. Now, I don't deny that they know a lot of information. These guys know a hell of a lot about what other people have written about the Celts in the past, the historians, Strabo, the ancient Greeks, the Romans, other writers, other studies, other academics, the church. I don't, deny that they are a great source and wealth of knowledge of things that are recorded, but nothing was really written down properly about the Celts anyway by themselves, much except the items, if you know how to read the items and interpret the items, and I don't think these two gentlemen do. It's if you can literally memorize everything that someone else has written, you can stand in front of a group, in a university and reel it all off, and you can say, I've just taught them a lot of stuff that I memorized, basically, right? But to fully understand it, to say that, you can answer you can be on a quiz show and you can answer every single question, like, who wants to be a millionaire? You can sit there and they can ask you a question, and if you've read the Encyclopedia Britannica and you know the answer that was written down, you can conjure that up and tell them what you read and memorized. But it doesn't mean that you understand it. You're literally just a memory expert. Now, when we're looking at the Celts, these guys are actually now, that they're part of this Celto-scepticism movement, which is proposing that there's no such thing as a Celtic culture. It was conjured up later. Yet, they were referred to the Celti. In Strabo, it mentions Celti. There is a word that was referring to them as Celti. So the term and word existed. It's not a conjured up term. Now, the problem is they are claiming that there's so many different parts of Europe and so many different tribes that, you know, it's not one solidified nation of people, to use this term. But, you know, where are the Roman skeptics? You know, you don't have Roman skeptics because there is Rome, you know, and they did a lot more writing, and it was more identified as, you know, they've got the Roman Empire. Where are the Hindu skeptics? Where are the other skeptics? Why does it seem to be that we only have these Celto-sceptics, yet they're still actually referring to the study of the subject as Celtic studies? So, you know, the entire, you know, language, well, it's called Gaelic, actually. The language is Gaelic, and it originates from an earlier language which was pre-Indo-European. And there are lots of similarities between the Indian counting system and the Gaelic counting system, enough to know that there is some, when you start going back into the mists of time, there are very similar roots and origins, you know. So now, I actually wanted to put another page up at the moment. I'm just trying to think where it is, because it's got some... actually, I know where it is now. Hold on a second. Now, let's just get this clear, right? This petition that I'm doing, and my whole channel, right? The petition is to protect our ancient local heritage sites, okay? Now, they span quite a wide section of history, and there's some controversy over the archaeological digs because the war broke out when it started being dug, right? And the other one, we can't do any archaeology in it now because it's been blocked off. Now, this is the thing, right? The whole petition to protect the area has ended up becoming also an investigation into the history of the area. Because we wanted, you know, we need to know why it's important to protect it. So you have to investigate. You have to do a bit of some history, and you have to be interested in a bit of archaeology, a bit of history, a bit of local knowledge, and then the timeline from now, what they're trying to do to it and what happened to it in the past. And then when you start drawing out the timeline, you start being able to see what's happened, and you can understand that. And then certain people who have been influential and acted all through history at different times, you can actually see put together the real story of some events, and then you can understand what's been happening, right? You can see, you know, what's going on. It's like any film or any story or book, whether it's fact or fiction. When obviously, if you're looking at real events, you know, this is what, and then there's been a lot of unusual and strange things happening, and then it actually ends up turning into an investigation, because I actually believe that through the study of the site, I have found evidence that it has been spoiled, attacked, ridiculed. And I also have a valid motive that I believe there is evidence to show there is also a motive and a reason behind that, due to political opposition and affiliations in the past, and religion, Christianity for one, wanted to get rid of certain religions like the pagan religions. And then we've got another serious issue, which is we have legal issues, because in the study of the history, we have a lot of material from the Celts, or whatever you want to call them, through their religious practices. And when you bring in other fields of professional expert study as well, like Dr. Dennis McKenna, which is psychedelics and religious anthropology, which actually anthropology is what makes us human, the evolution of human beings, right? We have these psychedelics motifs in there, natural forms, mushrooms, and it happens to be that currently now as well as through the emergence of the Christian faith, they are illegal. They're banned. Funnily enough, it's not a bomb. It's not a gun. It's not a slap around the face. It's not a punch. It's not a. It's illegal. It's a controlled substance. So we aren't actually allowed to study it unless you get special permissions. Unless you're the Imperial College in London and Robin Carhart. In a controlled laboratory situation, not on site in an anthropological setting of antiquity. You're actually in a clinical laboratory, which is probably the worst place to test it out, unless you're doing some weird government-affiliated experiments that they don't want you to know about too much, So we've got this legal issues, because if you are studying Celtic heritage and history, and one of the things that these classical writers, Strabo and the other writers, I can name you the others because I've got the writings on my phone because I've been reading them, right? They talk about, and this is the thing, right? This is very important because they make it explicitly clear when they refer to the Celtai and to the Druids, who they attribute to be the administrative body of what they refer to as the Celtai. We find that they say that they've got this particular spiritual belief system where when you die, the spirit or the soul, doesn't die, and you or you can leave the actual physical body and have a soul or spirit. Now it happens to be, coincidence or not, that when you get into these subjects such as ayahuasca, like the South American shamanism, it's exactly the right subject of this subject matter. And it also happens to be extremely similar, near identical to the psilocybin mushroom religions, right? Now, it's actually important because the classical writers explicitly say that this is a belief that the Druids don't actually keep to themselves or secret. This is something that is one of the main religious practices among all those peoples, the Celtai. And we know that even in France, Gaul, part of the Celtai, we know that well before the Roman invasion and the Roman conquest, we know that they are partaking in rituals and ceremonies, and they are painting their bodies bright colours as well. Oh, what coincidence! So they're doing that in relation to similar practices in South America. Now, later, we get classical writers, after all that has faded away in Gaul because it gets assimilated by the Roman Empire, at a later stage, we get the Picts in Scotland seem to get classified as being odd or unique or different from the rest of the Britain because they've got this strange habits and culture of painting or tarring themselves. Yet, it's not strange, weird, or unique because if you rewind back, it was clearly stated that the Gauls were doing it as well, but it faded out because it must have been assimilated. Now, these Celtai that we refer to, the word exists, it's not fabricated. So it's clearly obvious that the administrative body and their religion clearly was extremely important and spread around the whole of Europe, clearly from the writings from Gaul to Scotland, and it was about spirits and religious practices, and they all believed in it. Now, that is a reference it's a reference for these people and a belief system, right? Now, wouldn't that maybe suggest that when you refer to a peoples, now they refer to them just as a Celti, but they say the Druids, who are the clearly administrative of all of the Gauls and all of Britain, because they went. They even say that they went to learn in Britain from Gaul. So that's a wide area spread already. We've got. What could it possibly be that these are the people, the Celti, who are under the Druid administration and all have the same religion with this belief system that they clearly were partaking in Gaul and in Scotland as well, and in between. Maybe that's the term that they refer to them as, the people of this religion. Mainly as also, it was at one point, it was actually banned in the Roman Empire, as was Christianity. Now, that means that when they refer to the Celti, then they may not be referring to the people of this language or the people of this area or that area. They were referring to the people of Gaul or the people of Britain. Because if you refer to Druids, we know they were in Gaul and Britain and in between. So you're not referring to an island or a continent or anywhere. That's a catch-all term. Now, could it be that the Celti are the people of that religion, which clearly and obviously from the classical writings is widespread? And isn't it funny that the Indian language and counting system, which is extremely similar to the Celtic, the Gaelic counting system, originated from the same language, which was pre-Indo-European? And isn't it strange and unusual that the Indian Hindu religion has got some major female deities, such as Kali, which is a female deity, right? To do with and it's linked to death experience or dying experience or passing through to another side, and it's called Kali, right? Now, doesn't that not sound a little bit like Celti, right? Or even Kelly, right? Now, it ain't that much different from how the counting systems vary a tiny bit from, 1, 2, 3, right? Not exactly spot on, but, you could say, well, if the counting numbers have changed a little bit, maybe the name for the female goddess changed a little bit, right? Now, this is the thing. We seem to not really have that many skeptics in other areas of history. Why is it this Celto-scepticism? Where is the Romano-scepticism? Where is the Australianist skepticism? Where is the Russian skepticism? It seems that even the professors and academics of the Celti, the Celtic professors, even the ones who are teaching the subject, who are meant to be experts in it and like it, are the ones who are sceptical of it. Now, when I'm investigating an attack on ancient religious sites, and it seems to be an attack on that culture through ancient sites being spoiled, is it not tragic and a bit of a coincidence that the professors themselves are helping, put the last nail in the coffin by saying that the Celts don't even exist and it's a lot of rubbish? Yet, we've got Celti. So, I am not favouring these professors and experts who seem to be helping whoever it was spoiling the ancient sites, helping the Celts on the way out of the door and slamming it behind them, when they were here first, and it seems to be the conquering forces, and their imperial colleges in London are the only ones who are allowed to handle the psychedelics, which is the key to understanding the entire culture, the entire belief system, the entire religion, understanding the symbols on the items that they made, understanding what the symbols mean, reading them properly, and short of having any body of knowledge at all that you've memorised from books and writings of other people, being able to understand what it means, let alone knowing it. You can stand in front of, you can stand in front of a football field and read out of an encyclopedia. We even read it without having an encyclopedia in front of you. But it doesn't necessarily say you've got a clue on what it actually means. Which, to me, is what I'm hearing when I am watching these professors speak. Because, to be honest, I don't think they are competent or educated enough to be teaching in a university of education and academia in this country. Because in anthropology, if you look at anthropology, you must include other subjects in the study of anthropology. You have to do some archaeology as well, and you have to do some history. The subject is made out of a necessity to include other subjects in your degree. So how can we be in a situation where professors in Celtic culture are not learning or educated in the main religious sacrament and spiritual knowledge of the entire foundation which makes the belief system and all the words are founded on the language of those people, because it is illegal, except Bobbin Robin Carhart, who is in the Imperial College in London in a special clinical laboratory, because he's the only one who's allowed to get his hands on the stuff. And it's not even in context to a anthropological setting. It is in a clinical setting, which is the worst setting you could have. So it seems purposely retarded. There is a retardation in the current education system that wants there to be Celto-scepticism, because they are omitting and banning a fundamental entire critical section of the study of which is required to know what you are talking about when you are studying something, right? And further to that, Celto-scepticism is actually, I would say, an attack on a culture, because it's trying to say that there is no culture, it doesn't exist. Now, this is where we get interesting, because under the under the United Nations law, it says, as part of the United Nations law on protecting religious and ancient sites, the Security Council Resolution SRES 2347 affirms directing unlawful attacks against sites and buildings dedicated to religion, education, art, science, charitable purposes, historic monuments may constitute, under certain circumstances and pursuant to intellectual law, a war crime, and that perpetuate such attacks must be brought to a justice. Perpetrators of such attacks must be brought to justice, ensuring that religious sites are defined as vulnerable targets and include relevant national strategies and plans. Now, if I'm right, and if the Celti is actually the religion, right, then these professors have got a serious problem. Because if they are if they are saying that a language, it's a lot of rubbish and it doesn't exist, there's no law of that. Or if they're saying that a ethnic group of a certain continent, the Spanish don't exist, or the English don't exist, or the French don't exist, fair enough. But we're talking about a religious people who follow a religion. And the name is referring to the people of that religion. Now, when you try and say that the religion is fictional, fabricated, and doesn't exist, you are trying to devalue it, erase it. You are trying to illegitimize it. And that would fall under here of attack against a religion. So if I were these professors, I will be very careful about conjuring up these words like Celto-scepticism, because I believe it could be an attack on a religion and even an attempt to devalue, remove, or discredit the existence of a religion. Something like what the early Christian church was doing as well, trying to erase it and wipe it out, which now the church comes around and accepts all religions, Hindus, Buddhists, Zen, Jews, whatever religion you are, different Christianity branches, Catholics, Protestants, but it's still the pagans, still seems taboo. So, this is it. So, if I were these professors, I would be getting very quickly on the train or into my car and driving to the Imperial College in London with Robin Carhart and having a very serious, important meeting and talking about integrating his studies with the Celtic Studies group, not in a clinical environment, but possibly also going and meeting up with, Professor Alice Roberts and getting into an archaeological environment as well. Because otherwise, you are reading a lot of books, you are looking at a lot of pictures, and you are memorising them, and you're standing in front of a university full of students and training them to train other people and go out into the world and be professionals, when you don't really understand what you are talking about and what you are saying when you are looking at objects and reading words and language, because you have not had the experience of the religious entire complete foundations which the words are based on, which the words come from, which the metal items, nothing was committed to metal before it was committed to the mind. Now, these professors also like to talk around, these metal items are coming from France, they're coming from the Alps, they're coming from here, they're coming from there, this is a metal style of here or there. Might it be that just because you made the metal object in Timbuktu, it might not necessarily have been their design or idea? It might be true that they were the first ones making metal. But could it be that they just happen to be, because they're the ones who have got the metal and are making it, they're the ones who are committing the ideas first to metal out of all of the people? But it might not have been their ideas that were being committed to metal, it might have been the ideas that were passed to them from around the realm or the area, right? Oh, I've got a metal brooch. It's covered in gold. We found it in Wessex. Well, does that mean it was made in Wessex? Oh, it's Welsh gold. Oh, well, the gold was sourced from Wales. Oh, there's some metal. He's making some very nice patterns. Well, they must come from the Alps. Well, the metal's from the Alps, but where did the ideas for the patterns come from? Did you trace that back? Oh, no, because we cannot say. We can't say where they came from. Well, maybe if you had studied the religious spiritual experience, then you might be able to, understand it and experience it yourself and say, oh yeah, no, I can see where the ideas come from. But unfortunately, someone doesn't want that part of the study to be included. And I'm finding sites are getting spoiled and ruined, discredited, and now the entire name's getting discredited. So we've got a problem, because here it's illegal to discredit it and attack a religion, basically. You're attacking a religion. Celtize the religion. So I would quickly get the rubber on the Celto-scepticism word and quickly rub it out, because I don't see anyone having Romo-scepticism anywhere else. So, sexist, racist, ageist. Now we've got Celtist. No romanticism going on around. We need to approach this with a mature and open mind. And, you know, if that means we have to start legalizing things, otherwise you are ignorant to an entire knowledge base and field which is a critical part of an entire field of study. So this is what I have to say about these two professor, well, one of them is a professor, you know. So, you know, I am highly skeptical about what they are teaching on these degree courses in Wales, on the Celts, because, you know, you can have Welsh-speaking people who've got a Welsh language, Irish people have got a Gaelic language, Scots have got a Gaelic language, but just because you can speak the Gaelic language, you know, does not necessarily mean that they even know what a lot of their own language words are for. Like saucer, the sauce, saucer, liberty, the sauce, things like that. We've got the name. Why do we even call them Liberty Caps?